Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani. And of course, it's time for another episode of Rudy's Common Sense. Today, we're going to apply common sense to Elon Musk's quest to obtain control of Twitter. But we're going to do that in the context of where this country stands today in light of the restrictions that have been imposed on free speech, which are no longer minor, but considerable. In fact, I would describe it as an iron curtain of censorship that's been imposed to keep information on a regular basis from the American people. It's quite organized. It's quite regular. It happens every day. It is no longer an unusual occurrence. And Mr. Musk is taking on one of the primary contributors to that, but by no means the only one. So let's start with Elon Musk. Actually, I mean, this has to be looked at as the Battle of Lexington or Concord. This is the first battle in the revolution against the Iron Curtain of censorship. And I give great credit to Mr. Musk for being willing to take this on. This is a battle in which he will be falsely described in every way humanly possible. His great achievements, civilian conquest of space, the electric car brought to the level that he's brought it to, and PayPal, which he invented, all of which, just any one of which would be an achievement of a lifetime for any man, will now be attacked as somehow he wasn't worthy of it, or he did it by accident, or because there is substantial opposition to this by those who manage and benefit from the Iron Curtain of censorship. And that's a very, very large segment of the establishment, the elite establishment. And there are those who question his motives. I must say, you know, we call this Rudy's Common Sense. And here, I think we should apply common sense. This is not a profitable business. This is a man who likes to make a profit and has made enormous profits, right? He's held to be the richest man in the world. That's a heck of a thing to be, the richest man in the world, right? He's worth more than Twitter by a considerable amount. This is not a business deal. This is going to, over the short term at least, this could be a financial burden for him if a guy with that kind of wealth can have financial burdens. But this will be, because although this is hard to really fathom since he's worth 200 billion, 300 billion, whatever the heck it is, he's not very liquid. He doesn't have a lot of cash, meaning it's tied up. It's tied up in the stock of Tesla. It's tied up in SpaceX. It's tied up in debt that he's got to pay. So it's not as if he can just put his hands on the cash and buy it for cash. Can he do the deal? Yeah, sure. He can do the deal. Is there going to be tremendous opposition to it? Both the usual opposition to an acquisition, although this is not technically a hostile takeover. It seems like it is. Now he's going to have that entire iron curtain of censorship against him, and fighting very, very hard to not allow a crack in the wall, which is what this would be, a crack in the wall. And particularly since it's Twitter, because Twitter is one of the major players in censorship. And, you know, it's done the biggest ones, right? It canceled the New York Post with clear intent to affect an election. I mean, no doubt about it. The New York Post had information that was relevant for the American people to assess for themselves about very, very serious and supported allegations of crimes at the highest levels of two governments, one of them being ours, one of them involving our former vice president who was running for president, with tremendous amount of support from the hard drive. Indeed, there had already been tremendous amount of support for it a year earlier and had been censored by the same group. And the people that were involved in bringing that forward, myself, John Solomon, had been very, very heavily attacked. All of our motives questioned, and I was doing it to stop him from being president, even though it was done before he was running for president, and it was done in my capacity as a defense lawyer trying to collect information about this very, very phony Russian collusion charge, because in order to defend him properly, I want to know, where did it come from? Where did this emerge? It had no basis in fact. So who invented it? And it's now quite clear that Hillary Clinton paid for it. And a lot of it was invented, as the people who came to me and told me, in Ukraine. But this iron curtain of censorship has been used now over and over again at levels at which it's never been used before in our country. I mean, it starts with the first revelations of Biden and Ukraine, when the prosecutors from Ukraine and wanted to come over to the United States and testify under oath to Biden's involvement in a bribe to let the Burisma company go and escape any penalty for its laundering of $5 billion personal to Mykola Zlochevsky, a major oligarch, a Russian-oriented oligarch, a member of organized crime, and the person paying Hunter Biden and Devin Archer and their company, with 50% of it going to Joe Biden. I didn't know that at the beginning, that 50% part. That was contributed by the hard drive. But I did know that money was going to Joe Biden. I didn't know the amount. Hunter supplied that in one very, very damning text that in any other situation would have been considered the smoking gun, in which he says he gave his father 50% of everything he got for 30 years. And it was quite clear from the testimony of 7 or 8 witnesses that Joe Biden had bribed and extorted Poroshenko. Remember the quid pro quo? What was the quid? The quid was the $1 billion loan guarantee that was necessary for Ukraine to survive. The quo was get rid of the prosecutor so the case can get canned. The definition of bribery is offering something of value in exchange for official action. The something of value, certainly, was the $1 billion loan guarantee. The official action was Poroshenko being demanded, extorted, pressured, threatened to remove the prosecutor who wanted to move forward with the case. We'll take a short break. Think your homeowner's insurance covers home title fraud? Think again. And neither does your common identity theft program. The FBI calls home title fraud one of the fastest growing crimes, which is why you need to go to HomeTitleLock.com, America's leader in home title protection. Here's the problem. The deed to your home is the only document that proves you own it. And the deeds to all of our homes now are online. In minutes, a criminal can find and forge your name off the deed to your home and refile as the new owner. Like Jeff, who spent a fortune in legal fees after a thief forged himself onto the deed to Jeff's home and took out loans. Jeff didn't have home title lock then. He does now. Or Deborah, who thought our common identity theft service would protect her. Then a criminal got onto the deed to a home and had her evicted. Deborah has home title lock now. HomeTitleLock.com is your peace of mind, and the deed to your home is protected. Visit HomeTitleLock.com. HomeTitleLock.com. Thank you for returning to our discussion of Elon Musk and the Iron Curtain of censorship. Now, there has been totally false, fake news about that the charges have been debunked. That was printed by all the corrupt newspapers and television stations. Of course, every time I would ask, show me the report of the debunking, they had no report to show me. Now that we have the entire file and we have the hard drive, there was never any debunking. The Bidens, who lie for a living, basically said there was no investigation going on. That is completely untrue. On February 1st, 2016, Mr. Shankin, who was the prosecutor, arrested the Burisma company. That's the company owned by Zlochevsky. That's the company that paid the Bidens somewhere between $8 and $14 million over a period of time, some of it laundered, with proof of the laundering in the documents I had, even before the hard drive. And all of this was laid out in John Solomon's columns as early as February of 2019. That's almost 2 years before the election, before Joe Biden was a presidential candidate, at a time in which I actually didn't think he would be a presidential candidate. Looked to me like he couldn't walk across the street. I could imagine how you would put him in the White House. And I think now that you see him turning around and not knowing who to shake hands with and stumbling on his words and not remembering who his Secretary of Defense is and not remembering who his wife and his sister are, and saying really, really, really dangerous and absurd things about telling the troops that they're going to be in Ukraine the next day. Gosh, does he have to do any more to prove to people that he has a serious case of dementia? And he's president of the United States. The covering up that has been done for him still shocks me. Well, in any event, that was the first really across the board major censorship. Most of the mainstream media, except for John Solomon's Hill and to some extent Fox News and Newsmax and OAN, did not cover it. They didn't cover the facts. And they allowed the crooked ambassador there, Yovanovitch, who they made into like the Mother Mary, hardly. She held back these people from coming. And for that, she was glorified, as opposed to seeing through the fact that she didn't want them to come because they could give testimony about her and about how she got a case fixed for George Soros. All of this was covered up by the media, by the Iron Curtain of censorship conspiracy. And at the request of the president, I gave everything I had to the State Department, or I gave them an outline. I told them I would give them everything they had. They took the outline. They told me they'd be back for more, and they disappeared forever, even though they were in possession of people willing to testify to major felonies committed, some of them by State Department employees. How you can determine without questioning someone that they're not telling the truth is beyond my capacity as a former prosecutor and defense lawyer. It permeated the whole pandemic and the entire situation, let's say with hydroxychloroquine, where there are, I can't remember the exact number. I just read them in Robert F. Kennedy's book about Fauci, but I'm going to say 80, 90 peer-reviewed studies about how effective hydroxychloroquine is and was. And I, of course, have seen it directly for some of my friends and for myself. Exactly why that was covered up, and I think is a whole scandal of its own, and a really shocking one about profiting from the vaccine and not wanting treatment. This is the first time we've had a major illness and nobody looked for a treatment for it. We waited for a vaccine, and a vaccine that only partially works. There are treatments for this illness, but they were suppressed. China spread this around the world deliberately. Before you don't have to resolve, did it come from the laboratory? Although I think you're pretty stupid if you haven't figured that out yet. You don't have to resolve whether it came from the laboratory or from the market. Once China was aware of the fact that this was a deadly illness and it was going to hurt China, they deliberately allowed Chinese to travel around the world, but they wouldn't allow them to travel in China. Not only did Twitter take down the post when it had probably the most relevant story to the election that came out that year, and one of the most relevant that ever came out about an election, containing the seeds of possibly the worst scandal in American history, but they canceled the president, a president, because they didn't like what he was saying about the election being stolen. But they didn't cancel Hillary Clinton when she said that and kept saying it. They didn't cancel Stacey Abrams when she said that. They didn't cancel the Black Lives Matter advocate, John Sullivan, when he used Twitter to encourage many members of Antifa to come to January 6th to take out Trump and to cause trouble in the Congress. Or when he gave his speech about burning down Congress, question, why is he not in jail? My goodness, people are getting prosecuted for 14 days, trespass. This guy's on tape asking people to burn down the Capitol. Twitter's history of banning and shadow banning and is disgraceful. In a country that has First Amendment values, these are a complete contradiction of those values, and they escape it. They escape it with the argument that that they're not government, they're private, and the First Amendment only runs against only the government has to respect free speech. A private company can run all over free speech and apply totally dishonest principles. But this is for another day, but maybe this is one of the reasons why Twitter is fighting his takeover. Imagine what Musk is going to find in the files of Twitter, much like the hard drive that I got. You think they're going to find deliberate collusion with the Biden administration, both campaign and administration? Think they're going to find some deliberate conniving with Hillary Clinton, even back further? What do you think the odds are that we'll find that? There have been leaks and statements from the White House that makes it clear that they communicate with these social sites and companies, that they're very favorable to Democrats and to progressive Democrats and to all the left-wing nutty communist ideas that they have. So now that whole idea that it's not government conduct kind of fades away a bit if the government's involved as one of the players. So we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to take a look at that. because it's really important, and we're going to take a look at just how far a Musk takeover of Twitter would take us. It certainly wouldn't take us all the way in ending the Iron Curtain of censorship. In fact, there might be for some time a retrenchment by the others. But I think we'd conclude that it would be a step in the right direction. But let's take a short break and we'll be back very, very quickly. Not long ago, Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, and his team fit me for my very own MyPillow. They also introduced me to their wide assortment of other incredible products, like their mattress topper, their sheets, towels, slippers, and more. Sleep is incredibly important to me, and I can assume for all of you. It's time you give MyPillow a try and see for yourself. Listeners have helped build MyPillow into the incredible company it is today, and Mike Lindell wants to give back to all of you. You can get great discounts on MyPillow products by going to mypillow.com right now and seeing each of the specially priced items, including those in the radio listener special square. You're going to see rotational offers up to 66% off on products like their pillows, mattress topper, Giza sheets, but also new products like their slippers, weighted blankets, robes, and waffle blankets. All MyPillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Enter promo code RUDY for these great specials. That's mypillow.com and use the promo code RUDY. Welcome back. Let's proceed now with our analysis of Elon Musk, his offer for Twitter, and the impact that it has on the Iron Curtain of censorship. The offer that he made is a very, very comfortable offer. It would yield a tremendous profit to the stockholders. On financial grounds, this would not be as hard as it appears, but this is not a financial battle. This is a political battle. And for the Iron Curtain of censorship, this is a battle unlike any others. No one's battled them before. They've had free reign. I mean, some criticism by some of the conservative commentators like me and others, and they've never really been taken on quite like this, with the opportunity to crash open maybe their principal medium for censorship, or the one that certainly took the lead. This would also allow for a big dent to be made in the double standard. Just treat people equally. If you're going to allow Hillary Clinton to complain about stolen elections, then you should allow Donald Trump to complain about stolen elections. If you're going to allow Stacey Abrams to do it, and why can't you have that opinion? This is America. From the things that have been revealed, you can have the opinion that the election was stolen. If he can break this up, he will save America for the biggest assault ever on its treasured First Amendment, its treasured inalienable right of free speech. He will have saved it for us, just like as if we had gone to war for it. Because this is, in a certain way, a war. And here are his enemies. Iron Curtain of censorship, big print, the big newspapers, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and then all the rest that I haven't seen a New York Times or a Washington Post in the last 2 years that didn't have lies in it. They don't even make a pretense to tell the truth anymore. When they conceded that the hard drive was accurate, and they only admitted, they've only printed the tip of it. You haven't seen there the text about how the money was divided. You haven't seen the money laundering that went to Joe Biden. You haven't seen the text in which a psychiatrist says that Hunter Biden was a danger to minor children. or Hunter himself admitting it to his father, and the FBI and the local police did nothing about it. You haven't seen that, nor have you seen them show you the clear crime of making a false statement in order to get a .38 revolver, or the money laundering transaction in which $3.4 million went through, with I think 800,000 or 900,000 for Joe. They're still covering that up, the New York Times and the Washington Post. And as long as they cover it up, all the little left-wing acolytes in the other print newspapers, except for a few exceptions like the New Epoch Times and a few others, will cover it up. So these people will destroy Musk if they have to protect their co-conspirator, Twitter. Also, well, yeah, I mean, I have to tell you that NBC is biased, prejudiced, and lies all the time. If I have to tell you that, we got a lot of learning to do here. ABC, almost as bad. CBS, not quite as bad, but it still fits in. I mean, it just makes it in here. This is the leader, though. And particularly what they do with this thing. This isn't even, I mean, this is a propaganda. This would make Pravda look fairly straight. Pravda used to be the propaganda arm, newspaper, public arm of the Soviet Communist Party. I asked a guy who knows China really well, you know, just basically in terms of information your people get. As a percentage, are we deprived of about as much information? He said, absolutely. In fact, maybe more. The difference is when they want to crack down completely, they can. And that hasn't happened yet for you, but it could. And then, of course, we've got this ridiculous, corrupt, this is, I don't know what this is. It's an arm of the Democratic Party. It's a perverted operation. I mean, I just don't know what it is. But it's part of the Iron Curtain that are trying to fight Musk or anybody else, or me, or anybody else who comes in. Then, of course, we got Twitter, the big censorer, the censorer in chief. And then there, you know, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube that do their share of censoring when it's going to hurt their political, radical, self-interested viewpoint. And then we got the ones who were influenced by China, the China lovers, the people who are in love with the country that's killed 16 million of its own people, and the country that's trying to wipe out the entire Uyghur religion, all of them. What else has China done? The violations in human rights in China. If you can remain in a friendship with them, gotta be something wrong with you. The greed has overcome your conscience. And when you start saying things like Biden did, you know, that China really isn't an enemy, or like Fauci did, that he'd be, you know, they wouldn't want to kill any of their own people. When they've killed more of their own people than any country on earth, then you've been bought off by them. So who are they? Wall Street? A lot of Wall Street. A lot of Wall Street is more loyal to China than the United States. Sports leagues, you see it, baseball, football, not so much baseball. They don't have much to do with China. Basketball is the one that I should really outline here. Basketball. Man, are they into China. A lot of fans, a lot of money. I learned a lot going after the mafia and Boski and the crooked congressman, the Nazis. Whether he wins or loses, just to expose this, we made progress. If he wins, we're going to make a lot of progress. If he loses, we're going to have to regroup, but with a lot more knowledge than we had before. I've had to do that a number of times where we've had setbacks. Look at the hard drive. Look at the whole narrative. As the biggest liar in the world, the Russian agent. Now everything I said is true. Going to happen with the election too. Don't bet against me. You know what? I don't lie. Now, if that doesn't happen, if he can't crack through, then we've got to make the next election and the one after it work. 22, we need a Republican Congress. Big one. 24, we need a Republican president. Trump or like Trump. One who wants to be Teddy Roosevelt of this generation and break up these guys. Come on. Monopolies are illegal in this country. That's how we save capitalism, by getting rid of monopolies. We want to save capitalism, save ourselves from communism, then we break up Twitter, we break up Facebook, we break up Instagram, we break up YouTube. Gosh, we did it to the phone company. We did it to steel. We did it to the railroads. Those were pretty powerful people, the Carnegies and the Rockefellers, and politicians of their day had the guts to do it. Trump had the guts to do it. He's all ready to do it. Probably why they took him out. Now, let's just sum up. You don't have to believe me. You can believe them. There was an article in The Atlantic recently by two Harvard Law School professors, one Harvard Law School professor, Jack Goldsmith, and one from the University of Arizona, Andrew Keen. And they were calling for the United States to utilize the Chinese style of censorship. And you say I'm exaggerating when I say they want to make us a communist country? I'm telling you, right in The Atlantic. In the great debate of the past 2 decades about freedom versus control of the network, China was largely right and the United States was largely wrong. Significant monitoring and speech control are inevitable components of a mature and flourishing internet. And governments must play a large role in such practices. Do you realize how violative that is of the First Amendment? The government is going to be involved in speech control, and you're telling me they don't want a communist government? Two professors? Who the hell do they teach? Where do they come from? The jungle? And governments must play a large role in such practices to ensure that the internet is compatible with society's norms and values. Now, real simple. Who do you trust more? Jack Goldsmith and Andrew Keen, or James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, who said, keep government the hell out of the press. Keep government the hell out of churches. Keep government out of the private lives of people. Keep government out of speech. You know who puts government there? Karl Marx, Frederick Engels, Lenin, Stalin. Who are these people? Goldsmith and Keen. China was largely right. Significant monitoring and speech control are inevitable. This is what they're teaching our young people. One other point. Representative Adam Schiff, that's the major confirmed liar who's sitting on the January 6th committee. Representative Adam Schiff sent a message to the executives of Google, Twitter, and YouTube demanding censorship of anything deemed misinformation and false information. And there's no connection between government and them. How about when Biden wrote a letter to all the networks to tell them to keep me off? And many of them did. This is what we're facing. This is what Musk is facing. Here's a conclusion from a friend from a Jewish journal, Karen Besner. Given the growing power of mainstream media, and especially big tech, our ability to assess accurate information, our freedoms, and ultimately our democratic institutions are all in peril. You know that now. Let's pray for Musk. Let's root for him. Let's hope that he succeeds in getting control of Twitter and then does what he says he's going to do. Make it a fair, level playing field as an example of how this can be done. That's not going to win the whole battle. That's going to take us a long way. And if he doesn't, let's be ready to have his back, huh? Let's make that Congress as Republican as it can be. Let's make the president somebody who's got the guts to be a Teddy Roosevelt, break these guys up. If we don't do it, we're going to cease being a country. The division now is real. It's not going to be solved by singing songs and peace marches, and it's going to be solved when we don't have a double standard anymore. It's going to be solved when Hillary Clinton goes to jail for the crimes that she committed and Biden is kicked out of the White House and we take all his money back that he got for selling his oath of office. That's when it's going to get fixed. So stay involved. Please, let me know what you think. Send me your advice, your information, your questions, other facts that we can use, other ways in which you think you can be valuable. Send it to RudyGiulianiCS.com. RudyGiulianiCS.com. And tell your friends and neighbors and everyone else to get involved in the Freedom Network with us. Sign up, Rudy'sCommonSense.com. Sign up and become part of taking our country back, because that's what we are part of. We're not alone. We've got other groups we're working with. You know who they are, and you know the ones who are trying to destroy us. So again, encourage your friends and neighbors to stop complaining and start joining us. Rudy'sCommonSense.com. We'll be back in a few days with another equally as important podcast where we give you the information that is kept from you by that, the Iron Curtain of censorship. Thank you for listening, and God bless America.